Hey students, Mrs. Loy here. Today I'm going to be working you through the writing workshop on Too Much Dialogue. Let's go ahead and look at the layout for what our day is going to entail. As you can see from the agenda, you're going to need your laptop today, your 3-subject notebook, and any of your narrative materials. Now hopefully we had a chance to set up your writing folders during class, but either way you're going to be using your narrative piece of writing today to do some revisions centered around dialogue. So today's writing workshop, as you can tell from our agenda, is going to focus on dialogue and narration. We're going to start with a mini lesson, then you're going to have some work time on the strategy, and then you're going to have some share time. That share time is going to come in the form of an assignment where you're going to be submitting what you worked on today. Let's proceed. Let's go ahead and turn to section 3 in your notebook, which is the writing workshop section. As you can notice, I have already dated and named my writing workshop for today. So today is October 4th of 2019. It's our writing workshop, and today we're discussing too much dialogue. Here's the example that I developed that we're going to be working through today as a group. And then your practice is going to be done with the dialogue within your own narrative. And I'll explain that in further detail here in just a moment. Let's read the example together. When I went to the ocean, my mom yelled to be careful. I will, I said. The waves are big, she said. I'm fine, I said. Are you okay? She asked. I think so, I answered. I want you to take some time in your notebook and brainstorm. What seems to be wrong with this dialogue? What do you notice about the lines? What do you notice about the paragraphing? What do you notice about the way that it sounds? Pause the video now and take some time to brainstorm. What is wrong with this dialogue? Now that you've taken some time to brainstorm on what's wrong, let's take a look at what we came up with together. I noticed that there were no new paragraphs for each speaker. So right here, I am talking, and then it goes right into mom talking. And there was no new paragraph to indicate that there was a new speaker. The other thing that I noticed was that there were too many speaker tags. It was always I said, followed by she said, followed by I said, followed by she asked. There was really no variety in the types of speaker tags that the author used, so it really wasn't that interesting. The other thing I noticed is that the dialogue does not move the story forward. This conversation between the I and the mother doesn't really seem to move the story forward. It's really flat and doesn't really add interest for my reader. Lastly, it relies heavily on the reader assuming the action of the story. When mom talks about the waves being big, I might infer that this character is dealing with her fear of jumping through big waves. But I don't really know because the dialogue is super unclear. I want you to go ahead and pause the video at this time. Write this question in your notebook. How can we improve this? I want you to see if you can come up with 3 different ways to improve this particular piece of dialogue. Let's pause now. How did your brainstorm go? Ways that I thought that I could improve this was to, number 1, rework the paragraphs. I mentioned that when I talk about there being no new paragraphs for each new speaker. The other way that I thought that we could improve this is by simply taking the dialogue out and adding action. So changing this dialogue into simply narration, or me telling the story. The last way that I thought that we could improve this is by taking the dialogue out and adding the character's inner thoughts. So instead of it being a conversation between the mom and the I of the story, I'm just going to let the I have a lot of inner thoughts that reveal the fear that they're having towards the big waves. So let's look at some revisions, and you guys can add these into your notebook for each individual improvement. So the first strategy for improving this was to rework the paragraphs. Let's take a look at my new example. When I went into the ocean, my mom yelled at me to be careful. I will, I said. The waves are so big, don't get knocked over, she added. I'm fine, I continued. I'm going to dive into a wave. So notice the same ideas of the paragraph are still there. Notice that I have a new paragraph for each new speaker, and I also varied my taglines. So the first one was said, the second one was added, and the third one was continued. This is a really great way to revise your dialogue within your own narrative to make it more interesting. The second strategy that I used is to take the dialogue out and add action. So instead of having a conversation between the mom and the main character, here's what I came up with. All of a sudden, a huge wave came up. I put my arms over my head and took a big breath. Then, as the wave broke, I dove. When I came up, the wave was rolling on the beach and my mom was clapping loudly. The use of dialogue can be awesome, but in this case, my action actually sounds a little bit more interesting for my reader and it might engage them a little bit more. The last way that we can improve too much dialogue is by adding a character's inner thoughts. So again, instead of having that dialogue between the mom and the main character, I'm going to create the character's inner thoughts instead. I wanted to learn how to dive through a wave. This would be the day. But when the wave formed in front of me, I was scared. What if I get hurt? What if I don't make it through to the other side? What if it sucks me under? No time for what ifs. I decided to dive head first. Notice my use of the character's inner thoughts are in italics. Feel free to use that strategy in your own narrative. Now, let's move on to our practice. In order to complete your writing workshop practice, here are the steps that you need to follow. The first thing that we're going to do is go into your Google Drive. Now that I'm in my Google Drive, I'm going to go into my writing folder. If you don't have a writing folder, go back to the directions for this writing workshop practice and create your writing workshop folder. Now that I'm in my folder, I'm going to go ahead and create a new Google Doc. I'm going to go to the New button, click on Google Docs. Yours will prompt you to create and share. And if you're doing it in your writing workshop, you do want to create and share this document with Mrs. Loy, with me, so that I can see it in the future. The next thing that I need to do is go ahead and title my document. This is the Writing Workshop Revising Dialogue Assignment, Practice Assignment. So I'm going to make sure that I title that right up here in the corner. I'm going to do the same thing down here within my Google Doc. Now I'm going to go on to the next step, which means I have to go into my own narrative and copy and paste some of my own dialogue. If you don't have your own dialogue created yet for your narrative, number one, you really need to rectify that and we need to get some dialogue in your narrative. Number two, you can go back and use the example that we did together about the mom and the narrator talking about the waves. Now that I have my new document ready to go and I've copy and pasted my own dialogue for my own narrative, I've completed step 4. Now I'm ready for step 5. I need to choose one of the strategies above and rewrite my dialogue. I know that I'm not allowed to use any of the examples that Mrs. Loy used up here. So make sure that even if you're using my example, this example right here, that you're not using any of the ones down here as the ones that you submit for credit today. You need to rework and improve the paragraph in your own way. That's step 5. Step 6. Once you complete the rewrite, upload your revisions into the assignment on Canvas called WW Revising Dialogue. This is a formative writing checkpoint and it's due by the end of the day today on Friday, October 4th. If you have any questions about the revisions to your dialogue, please feel free to send me a Canvas message. Other than that, you can work on your narrative for the remainder of the time today once you've uploaded your Revising Dialogue practice assignment. Hope you guys have a great day, and thanks for listening in to this writing workshop on using too much dialogue.